Hey guys, I felt like doing a video, and then I was going to try to do one of my analytical videos, and I was just staring out my window. I'm like, I just don't feel like doing this right now. But I did feel like doing a quick video, and I felt like this was something that was just on my heart. And as you guys know, this channel is dedicated to the daily life. And right now I am really living the daily life. And so what I was thinking about was just the fact that, life isn't fair, and that's how it is for everybody. It's like, today was one of those days. You have really good days and you have really bad days, and that's how the daily life is. You will have fantastic days. You will have days when you wake up and you feel like you are on cloud nine and everything is going your way and you just feel like you know what you're supposed to do. And then you have days where you wake up and you're not going to feel that way. And that is how the daily life is lived. But for me, I have heaven as my end goal, and I'm going to get my castle and my crown, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And everything that I do in my daily life is about my character. It's about who I am, not what I do. It is how you it's how you greet your guests, not how many guests you had at the table. It's how you spoke to someone, not what you said. It's how you use what you were given, not what you were given. It's how you do your life that matters. And for me, I believe that I'm going to be rewarded for what I have done. And it doesn't have it. Nobody needs to know what I've done on the earth. I don't care. And frankly, like God says, that if people applaud you while you're here living on this planet, you don't get the same reward as you do in heaven. So I'd like to do things secretly. I would like to do things quietly. And a lot of times you do good in secret, and you also suffer in secret. But I also feel like I have been so encouraged by the stories of the people who've gone before me who did share their experience. And this is just a very interesting way to be able to do it, like to film my life. I think that's fascinating. I've always been a historian, and I've always been running around with a camera since I was pretty little. And I think it's fascinating to actually be able to have a record of my life. And with the whole aspect of life not being fair, life itself is just like, there's nothing fair about life. There's something beautiful and terrible about life, but just the fact that you're alive isn't fair. Like, some kids didn't make it and you did, you know what I mean? And sometimes we wish we didn't, but you have things to do while you're here, and you have things to learn, and things to make, and people to interact with, and ways to grow yourself. And if you are not dedicated to growing yourself and being the best person that you can be, meaning, you are, if you were to sit in a room, you could still be you. You don't have to do anything. You can be you. And being you is your thoughts, your imagination, your the way that you deal with anger and resentment, the way that you deal with pain, that is you. It's not what you do. You could be a street sweeper and you can be a queen or a king by your character, whatever, regardless of whatever you do. And life is not fair. Sometimes it's going to be wonderful, and sometimes it's not going to be. And the reason why it isn't fair is that it wasn't designed to be fair, because fair is equal, right? It's, across the board, everything's the same, and nobody really likes that anyway, because when someone is really good at something, you want to see that person rewarded at something. When someone's not as good at something, we don't want to see them get the same reward as, like, if we were to watch the Olympics, it wouldn't be fair if at the end everybody got, or not fair. It would be fair if everybody got the same, the same reward. I guess equal is a better word for that. Fair, and life isn't fair. I'm walking through my philosophy right now. But fair is not fair on the earth. Things will be fair and just in the afterlife. It will be handed to you. Whatever it is that you deserve, you shall get. And I think that is a frightful thing and a wonderful thing, you know? And like for those of us that have accepted Jesus, we are people who, you know, we get the basically free pass. I mean, like, that's really not fair, but Jesus did that for us, and he did that for anybody who's willing to believe in him. And, you know, like, we've all done things that we should be ashamed of. I think a lot of times people, like, they spend their whole lives hardening their hearts towards God, or, you know, trying to sear their conscience because they don't want to say how wrong they've been. They would rather have nothing than be wrong, which is a very sad way to live. It's better to be a little wrong and have the good stuff than to spend your whole life going, I am right, I am right, I am right, and then finally figuring out that you're wrong in the worst possible way, you know? But just in this life, there's a lot of hardship and trials, and the reason is because, I wanted to visually demonstrate this, I'm not going to break anything, but imagine if, like, at the beginning of time, see, this is the other thing too, is that people are so constrained by time, you know, like, they look at their little lives and they can only see about 5 feet in front of them, and it's like, well, can you look beyond that, and can you look behind yourself too? And most people just can't do that. But at the beginning, there was this thing called the fall, right? Most of us, I think, have heard of this, and if you haven't heard of this, what it is at the very beginning, when God created everything, there was a moment in time where the first 2 people who were living on the planet decided that they were going to do their own thing and not go with God. And they ate something. And when they ate this thing, I personally believe that something happened to them that made them unable to connect with God any longer in a physical way. That could be that something changed in their brain chemistry. It could be something that changed actually, like, in front of their eyes. Like, they could have been able to see God. That could have happened with some sort of dimensional split. I do not know. And frankly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can no longer connect to God, and we are always trying to fill that hole with something. So imagine if at the beginning of time, we are like in a slow-mo video, basically, or we're living out time. And at the beginning, there's something that is up here, and it's like on solid ground, being held by God's hand like this. And then all of a sudden we're like, you know what? We don't want you, God. We think we can do this pretty good on our own. And then he's like, well, okay, if you're going to physically push this barrier, you're going to fall. You're not going to feel it right away, but you are going to hit the ground hard and everything will shatter. And I have a way to put it back together, but as you fall, you're going to feel a lot of bad stuff. Because it's falling, it's gravity. It doesn't matter what the thing is, it would eventually shatter, okay? So as soon as we push God out of the picture, we're like, we don't want you, we don't need you, we push you away, this thing, and I'm going to let it actually fall, okay? So this thing goes falling down to the ground, right? That is what happened. And the problem is that we don't see, where's my cup? I am so blind. There it is. But we don't see that fall, that impact right away because we're trapped in time. So imagine if that was in slow motion, okay, right? And everything is falling, 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 falling. And as things start to fall, imagine if that thing fell apart. Like, if it was something that had, like, a lot of stuff on it, it would start to actually come apart in midair, right? So everything is fissuring and falling and falling. Now, thank goodness, God is someone who, like, let's say if it was made of glass and it had a lot of stuff on it, he can fix it because he can melt everything down and remake it. But we're going to feel the impacts of it from the beginning of time, which would be like where I dropped the thing, till the end of time, which is where we hit the bottom, right? So in between, we're starting to fall. You know, people are, you know, all this stuff is going on, and it's in slow motion for us. And so nothing in this in-between is going to be fair. But if you know that when you hit the bottom and everything shatters, it's going to be remade, you go, well, here we go. And you kind of just, you know, you let yourself go. You let yourself fall. And whatever happens in the meantime, it doesn't quite matter. You're hoping you can kind of bump into something that's, you know, sort of stable. You know, or like if you were put out at sea, you're like, well, I hope I can find a log to, you know, float on while I get to the shore. But I mean, it's gonna break, it's gonna fall, you know, and so your worries kind of go out the window. Whereas people that maybe don't believe that they're ever gonna actually hit the bottom, or if they believe that they're gonna hit the bottom and nothing will be remade, you're fighting for everything. You're fighting to hang on to things. You're fighting for this, fighting for this. And then the people that are like, well, I guess we'll just go, that they're full of despair. The people that are falling, that are, that have the hope of everything being remade, they're like, well, I mean, we're falling, but it's going to get remade in the end. So that's my attitude, is that everything is going to be remade in the end. It's, I don't need the most beautiful home while I live on this planet, because I'm going to have my castle when I get to heaven. I honestly believe that. I'm going to have, I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but like, the Lord has a place prepared for me. I don't need a bunch of accolades and praise, and I don't want it, because the Lord's going to give that to me in heaven. And it's not even, I think when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, like, people are going to like praise me in heaven. And now it's like, I just want to go in, and I don't even want praise when I get to heaven. I just want to get to heaven. And I think that's kind of the whole premise of the idea. It's like, when you are young, you want to be famous. When you are older, you want to be known and loved. And that is so very different than being famous. It's so very different, because you could have 1 million people know your name and no one know you. That's very, very sad and lonely. And it's even more lonely to have people think they know you and not know you. It's much better to have 1 or 2 friends who really, really do know you, and you feel like you can tell them anything. But anyway, the whole thing is like, yes, everything around me right now, it feels like it's falling down, because it is. And it will fall down again. Even if I find some safe piece of glass to land on for a while, it will fall again. And that's just how life is. And while I am here, my goal in life is to tell people, it's going to be remade. You can let go of these things. You can let go, and it's okay. You can let go and not despair. There is no despair. There is the fall, there is the breaking, and then there is the remaking. And that's everything. If you don't believe that, there is nothing. There is no rhyme or reason. There is no good or bad. And I guess the only thing you could really live for is like small bits of physical pleasure. And that's just sad, so, but that is, like, everyone gets to choose their own way. It's just, for me, like, as everything's breaking and going down, like, even now, like, He will always provide something, even as you fall, even as you're going through this process of falling down, and that everything's going to break, because, we all die. Like, that is something that we all have to face. We all end, like, our bodies do break, they do die, doesn't matter whether if like the whole world is ending or just we are ending, but we will all die. And that promise of being able to break and be remade, that is the hope of humanity. That is everything. And the thing is, if you fall and you break and you refuse to be remade, if you are someone who's like, no, I don't want that, then those pieces of glass, they get tossed out. And that is the reality. Is like, you either are remade or you're thrown out. And people don't like that either. That's a very difficult thing for people to wrap their mind around. But that is what it is, and you get to choose which path you take. I feel like this is really super rambly. I had so many things on my mind. It's been a very long couple of days. It's like one of those days where you're like, is it over yet? But in the midst of everything, God is taking care of us. And God is good. And I'm gonna have Lexi on here to do a quick short story of mine that I thought was really fun. So I'm gonna share that with you guys. But yeah, just things will be remade eventually. So if you're going through a tough time right now, and if you don't know the Lord yet, I would just really encourage you to look at the words of Jesus and to know that He is going to make all things new. And if you're on His team, you're covered. It's good. Like, even if the worst of the worst of the worst happens here, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because in the new world, we'll go back to where we were held on God's hand, and it's never going to fall again. So anyway, all right, well, much love to all of y'all, and keep us in your prayers, and I will talk to you soon.